It's another example of an Indian curry that is almost never seen in restaurants because it doesn't fit neatly into one of the categories that Westerners expect, such as korma or rogan josh or vindaloo. By the way, the same effect is true of other national cuisines too. For example, there are a great many dishes that Americans think of as common foods that basically don't exist in other nations. ANARDANA is an ingredient that you probably haven't heard of before, and it's a bit tricky to use, but it's well worth seeking out if you like exotic new tastes.
So we're going to begin by making the spice mix, which will be, part of it will be the dry rub for the beef. I have 30 grams here, about an ounce of ANARDANA. It's dried pomegranate seeds. You cannot make these yourself. You have to look for an Indian spice store or buy them online. There's no way to duplicate the flavor in this. They should be slightly sticky. East End is a really good brand. I like them, but there's others. And then we have the other spices. A large dried red chili. I dried it myself, as you know from the first volume of my cookbook. The cinnamon, which in this case is real cinnamon. It's not cassia that you usually get as cinnamon sticks. Also, something to look for from an Indian spice store, cumin seeds and coriander seeds. Okay, I've got a cast iron pan here. I've heated to 500 degrees. And you have to be very careful when you toast this. You have to do it fast, reasonably fast, because you'll go from toasted to destroyed here in no time for the ANARDANA. Usually we toast spices around 300 Fahrenheit. This time we're doing it very hot, very hot. You kind of feel it. If your fingers can tolerate the heat at all, feel it. See how these are doing. You don't want them to burn. You want to dry them out a little bit. You want to get them a little bit, get that moisture out of there a little bit. Hard to explain the exact feeling, but this is good. They're more sticky than they were. There's some smoke coming off them. Okay. Back they go. Now we're going to toast the rest of those spices. Here's everything. I broke up the red chili into some pieces. And it's very hot now, so it will not take very long. Much hotter than I usually toast spices at. That's just the nature of this recipe. Give it just a minute here. Okay, it's been like 45 seconds here. There's a lot of smoke starting to come off. You can hear the seeds popping. That's it. We're going to go back here and we're going to cool them down a little bit before we grind them. The first thing to get ground after it's cooled back down again is this sticky ANARDANA, and it's even more sticky now than it was before. The reason why you want to do this first is it's going to be the most difficult to grind. We're also going to put in a couple of teaspoons of coarse salt. The abrasive properties of that salt will help it grind. After that's ground, we've got all the rest of the spices that will go in. Oh, that's really filling the spice grinder up for once. Okay, it's pretty well ground now. I'm going to add the mace or nutmeg and give it the final grind here. Okay, good. Now we're going to run this through a sieve. Okay, we need to get some of this passed through a sieve. We want some that's fine ground, just enough to coat the meat. So we're going to mix this around a little bit. It's going to take a couple minutes here. We need a total of 3 tablespoons of the spice mix that passed through the sieve. Yeah, it'll take you a minute or two to get 3 tablespoons out of it. You'll see how this works in a minute. Yeah, when you think you've got about 3 tablespoons of this spice mixture through, you're going to add the teaspoon of Kashmiri chili, Indian Kashmiri chili. I've discussed this in my first volume of my cookbook. For more details about this specific ingredient, look that up. Now that we've got at least 3 tablespoons here, we've got the beef. Now, I cut this into about 1-inch cubes, 2.5 centimeters, roughly. I'm going to add all the spice to it. It's about 3 tablespoons, plus the teaspoon of Kashmiri chili. Massage this around And the rest of the seasonings, we're going to keep this aside. This is going to go into the curry. We're going to use this separately. So this is a dry rub on the beef. This is going to sit a little while, marinate, and then we'll continue the recipe. As usual, you want to make sure that you get all of your ingredients together here before you begin. This is the rest of the spices, of course. We have the meat that's been sitting with the spices on it. The onions ready for this, sliced into rings. Some mint, the ghee or clarified butter. This is garam masala that I made with the same recipe that's in the first volume of my cookbook. You can buy garam masala, it won't be as good. Some garlic, ginger. I'm using these canned Italian tomato pieces for this, and some mint. So we have a pan. It's not super hot, but it's hot. I'm going to put the ghee in there and begin cooking the beef. So we want to cook the meat here, get the spices that are on the meat cooked more, and also get the meat cooked to the point of where it would be considered rare. You could actually eat it the way that it's finished, because this is going to be put aside for a while, quite a while we finish up the curry, and then it'll be reintroduced into the curry and simmered. So we're actually going to cook the meat enough that you could eat it. The most important thing is to don't let it get blackened. We're not looking to get that deep dark caramelization on it like you would in certain dishes, especially some Italian dishes. We're not looking for that. We just want to make sure that it's cooked evenly and thoroughly, but not super well done. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes now of actual cooking. If we were to slice this meat open, it would be very pink on the inside, but actually edible. It's not toxic anymore, and that's fine because we're going to be putting this aside for a little bit. If you get some juices collected in here, don't worry about it because those are going to be reintroduced back to the curry in just a little bit. The next step, though, is to get this meat off into a separate container, hold it, and then we're going to begin frying the onions in the same pot here that the meat was just cooked in. Okay, that looks pretty good. I can strain some of the juices back. It's not enough to worry about right now. There will be later as this meat cools down. It's going to leave a lot of juices. We'll come back to this later. Right now, I'm going to add those onion slices and begin cooking these. Get these softened before we add anything else to the pan. And the heat is on 5 right now. At 1 to 10, it's on 5. This is also the temperature that I cooked the meat at. Okay, the onions have now been cooking for 5 minutes. I'm adding the garlic and the ginger. And continue sauteing this for just a little bit more. Still on a medium heat the whole time. Medium heat, number 5 out of 1 to 10. Okay, it's been 2 minutes now by the clock. Now I'm adding all of the spices, the ANARDANA and all the rest of it, except for, of course, the stuff that was passed through the sieve and went on the meat. But the rest of the spice mix is in here. And we're just going to do this for like 1 minute. We're just going to mix it up with the onions. Then we're going to add the tomatoes to it. It's like 1 minute here. Okay, now I'm going to add those Italian tomatoes. It's just starting. It was just starting to stick at the bottom here. So this is going to deglaze the pan. Scrape the bottom. Make sure you don't have any spices sticking and burning. Okay. Now this is really where you have to be patient in making this. I've got a medium heat setting. It will take a while for this masala to really thicken up, and you just have to stay with it. Now, as I said, we're going to come back to these beef juices too. Strain whatever ran off of it into there. I got a piece of runaway beef here. I'll pick that up and put it back. But the juices are in there, and these are going to get reduced down into the masala, and it will take a while. You stir it every once in a while. Just be patient. Just to show you, this is what it looks like 10 minutes in. It's still thick, but we got ways to go. This is not the masala we're looking for yet. Minutes in. You gotta keep watching it, make sure nothing is sticking to the bottom. Keep the bottom clean. I'm gonna revisit the meat here. Got a little bit more juices in it. Good. Add that to the pan too. And just keep it going. Just watch that nothing is sticking and burning. It's a process, but this is what separates a good masala, a good curry, from something somebody didn't know how to make. You have to be patient. You have to go reasonably slow and watch it. And here we are about 26 minutes in from when we started here, still on a medium heat. This is extremely thick now, extremely thick cohesive mass. That's what we want to see. Look at that. It's like a ball of dough practically. Now, I'm going to add the water. And a handful of mint leaves. Stir this together a little bit, and then it's going to go in the blender. You can use a conventional blender for this, like you would for making cocktails or milkshakes if you want. It's up to you, whatever you've got. This works well. This works well. Then pass as much as you can through a sieve back into the same pot that you were cooking this in before, but I've washed out that pot, so there's no residue, there's no ANARDANA seeds or anything else that's going to be lumpy in there. When you've got as much through as you can, wipe this off and then scrape the bottom of the sieve. Make sure that you get all the stuff off the bottom into the pot. Now we have the smooth mixture in here. We're going to reintroduce the meat and begin the long, slow simmer under lid. Okay, after a little while, an hour or so, I'm going to add the garam masala. Give it another stir. And finally, after about 2 hours, you've got this lovely thick curry. Now, you have to taste it. I just tasted it and decide how much sugar and salt it's going to need. I decided it needed about a tablespoon of dark brown sugar. That's about typical. It's about a tablespoon. Should be about right. And just a little salt, not only half a teaspoon, something like that. But you have to taste it at this point and determine that yourself. Now, do yourself a favor and don't eat it right now. Put it in the refrigerator and store it until the next day if you can possibly do this. Possibly do this. It will be really, really, really good the next day. If you eat it right now, it'll be good, but it'll be amazing the next day.
If you like my videos, look for my cookbook, now available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other internet bookseller sites. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.